Hello.
Oh, I lied. We're going to be joined by our race winner, Brad Keselowski. All right, let me get you spotlighted
That's
here.
me.
I know. Hey, it is you. Let me get you spotlighted here for everyone. All righty. Well, thank you so much for taking some time with us. Congratulations on the win. I know we're going to have a bunch of questions for you, so we'll get right in. And let's kick things off with Bob Pockris. Go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry, Brad, does this, I know nothing makes up for Daytona 500, but does this make up a little bit for what happened in February?
Sorry, I'm just turning you up. You're real quiet, but I think I heard you about Daytona versus, yeah, I got it. It's all the way next. Thank you. Yeah, Bob, I mean, Daytona, that's a big one. Oh, man, it stings still, but this is a good one. We'll take it. Beggars can't be choosers, but, I certainly learned some lessons from that race and tried to apply them, and it all came together there at the end. Michael McDowell gave me a great push, kind of like he did at Daytona, and I was a little bit smarter with how I handled it, so it all came together.
And Joey obviously was a little frustrated. He's been two big wrecks now, the last two Daytona Talladega races. Feels like the spoiler's a little big. I mean, is there much difference in this package versus what you had before the Daytona 500 last year, and they made some of the changes following the Newman wreck?
Yeah, Bob, there's been so many rules changes that I don't even remember which ones are which, to be quite honest. I felt like the rules from 3 or 4 years ago, the cars were harder to get side by side, but you had to earn it a lot. Now I feel like a dang, teenager. I got to learn all these new technologies all the time. And, once you got one type of format or rules package figured out, then the rules get changed. And, it's kind of frustrating. I felt like I had the rules figured out, 09, 2010, there was some rules changes, and then started to get a handle of them around 12 or 13. There were some rules changes, and then got really good around 14 and 16. And, another rules change, and, I kind of got really bad there for a little while. I haven't won here on a play track for 4 years. So the rules kind of, take some catching up to get used to. And I feel like that meme where there's an older guy walking into the high school saying, "How do you do, fellow kids?" Every time they change one of these rules package, because it's just such a start over. But, all the moves you work to accumulate are kind of kicked in the butt. But, this particular rules package, my feelings on it are that it's so easy to build a run. It's just incredibly easy to build a run. And, I don't know if you have to have quite as much tact, but, it does make for more side-by-side racing. And I think the fans like that. So there's some trade-offs, as for whether or not, it causes the cars to go airborne or not. I mean, I would let the aero guys probably answer that better than I could, Bob.
All right, and we are now also joined by our race winning crew chief, Jeremy Bullins. So if you have a question for Brad or Jeremy, please raise your hand and then just make sure you address who your question is for. And we're going to take our next one from Jenna Fryer. Go ahead, Jenna.
Thank you. Hey, Brad. My question's for Brad. Congratulations. I'm wondering what Roger on the call he had with the drivers this week, how he told you guys to race, and if you think you needed to be told how to race.
Well, I think really the only thing that Mr. Penske told us was just don't wreck all the cars. You guys need to figure something out, but don't wreck all the cars. I think that was probably the biggest thing. And I don't know if there was a real clear answer on that. I think we talked a little bit about staying in line at the end of the race and all that kind of stuff, but no real consensus on that. So, with respect to him, I'm glad that we were able to win and we didn't wreck all his cars.
So it's overtime, the end of the race. What are you doing there? Are you staying in line? Is your thought process, I'm just staying in line until the very end?
Thankfully the way the race played out, we had a double foul restart at the end, and we didn't even have the chance to stay in line, right? So I'm glad we didn't have to figure that out.
Thanks, Brad.
No problem, Jenna.
All right, we're going to take our next question from Marty Sakala. Go ahead, Marty.
Hey, thanks, Marissa. I got one for each of you guys. Actually, yeah, one for each of you. First off, for Jeremy, congrats on the win. From a crew chief's perspective, what is it that makes Ford and Team Penske just really good at super speedways in Talladega?
I think the race teams have put a lot of emphasis on making the cars drive well. I think, the obvious answer when you come to Talladega and Daytona is that your car needs to be fast, but it also needs to handle well. And I think we've done a good job of having a balance of both. And I think that showed in the fact that we were able to get all the cars towards the front as many times as we did. And I think the drivers, and not only the drivers, but the spotters put a lot of emphasis in it. Coleman Presley and Brad have worked so well together. And, to Brad's point of learning how to make the moves and how to, to get where you need to get at the end of these things. And, I thought that they did a perfect job at the end of putting themselves in a position to where, opportunity came about for us to get to the front. And they do that by studying these races and understanding what it takes to make those passes at the end.
And then Brad, for you, congrats on the win to you as well. Just what did you expect McDowell to do off of turn 4? Did you notice that him falling back, trying to get a run on you?
Yeah, I saw he was getting a run, and I was just praying I'd get to the start finish line before it was too late, and thankfully it was.
All right, thank you guys. Congrats.
All right, and we're going to take our next question from Lee Spencer. Go ahead, Lee.
Thank you. Congratulations, gentlemen. Basically wondering now that all 3 of the Team Penske Fords are in the postseason, does this kind of give you an advantage to start working on that while still trying to accumulate wins throughout the rest of the regular season?
Is that for me or Jeremy?
Either one.
Go ahead, Jeremy. You take part 1. I'll take part 2.
Jeremy.
All right, I'll take part 1. Lee, I think it's good for everybody that works at Team Penske to know all 3 cars are in the playoffs. My phone is just blowing up from members of the shop and the team that are just ecstatic that, when COVID happened, there was a really big realignment of the way people work on the teams. We kind of went to a format where, half a dozen or a dozen people that were maybe specific to each team with the roster limitations are now kind of work on all the teams, whether it be at the shop or even sometimes at the track as we rotate for different things or reasons. And with that, it's so easy for them to kind of, get torn and pulled apart between the different cars and teams, whether it be the team they used to work on or whatever team they're working on any given weekend. But when we have wins like this and when we have wins on the board with all 3 teams, it becomes really easy to kind of keep everybody pulling the rope the same direction. So I think it's a big win for us. I mean, it certainly has a lot of ramifications further down the line with respect to playoffs and all that kind of stuff, which is great. And we're very happy for that, but also cognizant of that first part.
And if I can follow up really quick, there were a couple aerodynamic situations that stuck in my head. One, you said this is really behaving like a handling track. Usually we think of Daytona as a handling track.
Yeah.
So there was that. And the second one was Blaney said something about there's such a bubble between he and Hamlin that he couldn't get to Hamlin's bumper. And I'm wondering if you saw some of the, talk about the handling and some of the other characteristics you experienced today.
Yeah. I don't know why, but the spring Talladega race always seems to be a little bit that way, but here, so it was, whew. I mean, you would never think that these cars with the spoilers they have on them. What Dale Jr. called a big ass spoiler. You would never think that with the spoiler this big that the cars would be so loose and out of control. But, I think it just goes to show you that we just iterate around it. And the teams find ways to get the cars back to on the edge because that's where the speed is, even with the spoiler that looks like it came off of a wing sprint car.
Appreciate your time. Safe travels.
Thank you. You too, Lee. Appreciate you.
All right, we're going to take our next question from Mark Garrow. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Brad, 2 questions. First off, did you anticipate DiBenedetto leaving your line? I anticipated he'd stay with you, but was that a pleasant surprise that he jumped to the outside and left an open path for you?
Yeah, I don't know if I really have an answer on what I anticipated there. I just knew I was going to run the bottom and play it out, see what happened, Mark. And I knew I was beside him. I was like, damn, I sure hope he don't turn down. It's going to be a big mess. So I'm glad he didn't, but yeah, that was hairy for sure.
And my other question, 11 straight seasons now with at least one win. I mean, that's, you know, that's not a Johnny come lately record. That's pretty straight up good.
Well, I'd be
How do you feel
lying if
about
I
that?
didn't. Be lying if I didn't tell you I was thinking about that. It's very special to me. Kind of gives me some chills. And you know, I started out racing just hopeful I could have a job and you know be able to race in the truck series with my family. I never envisioned you know winning at the Cup level, let alone probably even being at the Cup level. And you know to win 6 races here at Talladega is just it's an incredible feeling. And to have 11 straight winning seasons, that's pretty cool too. I think is it Tony Stewart or Ricky Rudd that has the record? I don't know. I'm sure I'm a long ways behind those guys, but hopefully we can catch up.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, we're going to take our next question from Greg Engel. Go ahead.
Hey, let me get everything on. Sorry. Hey, congrats, dude. When you won your first Talladega race back forever, could you imagine that you would be sitting here tonight, Dale Earnhardt Jr., tied with Jeff Gordon, and actually looking forward to and having a chance to tie the record set by Dale Earnhardt Sr.? How does that feel?
Yeah, it's more than I ever dreamed. I can tell you that. But I would pause and say Dale's record is so far out there that yeah, I have a shot at it, but it's a distant shot. You know, I think you know what. You got to get 7 before you even begin to think about 10, but still pretty cool to be on the same list with him on anything. That's for sure, even if it's second.
Thank you, man. Congratulations. Enjoy it. Keep up the great work with your foundation for us veterans.
I appreciate you.
All right, we're going to take our next question from Chase McCabe. Go ahead, Chase.
Brad, congratulations on the win. You talked about winning 11 straight years. Was frustration starting to set in at all that it hadn't happened yet at this point in the season?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you get frustrated when you're not winning, and you know, that's my job, right? I felt like we had a car to win last weekend, and you know, things didn't come together, and felt like we had a car to win the Daytona 500, and it didn't come together, and you start wondering, is it ever going to come together? You know. And then there's years where, you know, you run 3rd or 5th and race wins just fall on your lap. And you go, oh, God, it's easy. What's so hard about this? So this has been a tough year to start because I feel like we've had some really strong runs and things have fallen apart on us that, you know, somewhat were in our control and some not. But I'm glad that we keep putting ourselves in position. And I do believe strongly that if you do that, good things will come.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take our next question from Dustin Long. Go ahead, Dustin.
Thank you. Brad, I'm curious. It had been a few years since you'd won it at Talladega. There was a stretch there where people said, you know, Brad is the best at Talladega or one of the best at this type of racing. That conversation had kind of gone to some other drivers here in recent years.
Sure.
From an ego standpoint, and I know from one sense you probably don't care what I think or what a lot of other people think, but still to hear that you're no longer the best when people praising you for a while like they were, what did that do to the ego? You know, what does that do to you personally? I don't know. Vindication is probably not the right word. Maybe there's a better word. How you feel in that sense of once no longer being looked at the top guy after you were, and what today means.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's frustrating. You know, I did win the Clash, I guess, in between here and my last Talladega win. But still, you know, you like to win 2 or 3 of them a year, and you need to win 2 or 3 of them a year to in my mind, be, you know, thought of as one of the best. So certainly had been a drought, without a doubt. I go back to kind of what I was saying earlier. I feel like the last 2 years we had some incredibly strong runs. I mean, shoot, I was in position to win the Daytona 500 the last 2 years and you know, wrecked. Probably could argue my fault or not, but certainly subjective wreck. You know, I think the Talladega races, we've led a lot of laps and won stages and finished second in stages, and at the end kind of fell on the bad side of the deal here. So those things are going to happen. I don't like them. I'm not going to pretend I like them, but I think you try to have some perspective, Dustin, and you try to, and you know what, someone once told me when I first started racing that, you know, never believe your own press clippings for good or bad, right? Your own PR reports or whatever it might be, or even the media reports, because, you know, usually the good stuff is greatly exaggerated and so is the bad. So I always feel like there was plenty of other great plate track drivers beyond myself, even 3 or 4 years ago when people were saying that. And I felt like I was probably better than what people were giving me credit for the last 2 or 3 years. So, you know, just try to balance that out.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, we're going to take our next one from Stephen Conley. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, Brad, we heard Coleman Presley on the radio, and I was kind of curious about your relationship with Coleman, what you're expecting out of him, especially on these speedway races. And he talks, I mean, he gives you a lot of information. Does that make it a little difficult? Did you almost get overrun with information sometimes?
No, I mean, I think, you know, I always have the ability to tune them out. You know, I'd rather have more than less. And, you know, I put a fair amount of, you know, significance on that role over the years. And I suspect I'll continue to do so for years to come. And Coleman has stepped up and continues to push himself to be the best. And he's grown a bunch. I'm really happy for him.
And how big is his former experience as a driver in that position?
Oh, it's huge. You know, I'm almost expecting him to know what I'm thinking before I know what I'm thinking. And having come from a driver role in the past, that I think is easier for him to do.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, we're going to take our next question from Stephen Toronto. Go ahead, Stephen.
This is a question for Jeremy. Jeremy, William Byron was talking to us a little bit ago, and he mentioned that after the rule changes that had been made to slow the cars down after last year's Daytona 500, the teams had more or less re-engineered whatever speed had been taken away back into the cars at Daytona and Talladega. Exactly what has been done, and exactly what do you think NASCAR should do with this rules package to slow the cars down, considering what happened with Logano earlier in the race?
Well, I think anytime you get a car upside down, NASCAR historically has done a really good job of going back and looking at, you know, what led to that and what do we have to do to. That's the last thing we want, right? So they've done a great job historically of going back and looking at, you know, how do we keep them on the ground? And a lot of that's speed related. But I think there's a fine line, you know, and Brad alluded to this earlier. If you go back to 14, 15, and 16, the way the races were, you could see a guy get the lead and be able to manage both lanes, you know, when we were racing too wide because the runs weren't as big, right? And I think that has a lot to do with it. There's a fine line between whether the accidents are caused by the speed we're running or by the runs that we get. And, you know, it's the driver's instinct to defend that run. And if the driver, you know, defends a run that there's no defense for, you wind up in a bad spot. And that's not what happened in Joey's case at all, but that happens a lot. And you know, there's a lot of things that go into that. And you're right, when there's if they slow us down, we look for ways to go faster because that's our job. And that's just how these speedway races evolve, right? So it's just a matter of looking at, you know, where we are, where we've been, and trying to figure out what the best way forward is.
Thank you.
All righty. Do we have any other questions for Jeremy Bullins before we let him go?
I have one for Jeremy, if I can, Marissa.
Yes, go ahead, Cole. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy, is this a bit of redemption from last week with that pit call at Richmond?
Well, you know, you win some, you lose some, right? So, you know, it's like I told some folks this week, we've never shied away from trying to make a strategy call that separates us from the field. We tried that last week. One of them worked and one of them didn't, and it didn't in a big way. So, you know, I kind of laugh when things go wrong like that. You just have to learn from it. Obviously, that didn't play out like we wanted it to, but, you know, at the end of the day, you know, there's 36 of these things for a reason, and sometimes you get it wrong and sometimes you get it right. And, you know, fortunately today we're having a couple Keystone Lights because we got it right. So, you know, we'll learn from last week and won't make that mistake again, but, you know, it's just part of it. And you're always going to lose more than you win in this sport. I don't think there's been anybody yet that won more than they got wrong. So that's just part of it. And it certainly feels good to bounce back this week.
Awesome. Congrats, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Jeremy. Well, we're going to let you get back to inspection. Brad, we're going to keep you for a couple more questions. I know you're ready to jump out too, but thank you so much for joining us, Jeremy. Congratulations. And Cole, go ahead and ask your question for Brad also.
Thank you. Congrats, Brad. Kind of going back to what Greg was talking about with tying Dale and Jeff. What does it mean for your name to be cemented along those guys in history?
Well, I mean, Cole, I guess I never thought I'd even have that chance. So it's tremendous to me. You know, I grew up, you know, loving the sport, still love the sport. You know, we fight sometimes like, you know, husband and wife, but I still love the sport. And, you know, I love the challenge every day of getting up and, you know, trying to find excellence, reinventing yourself as the rules change and people change around you. And it's hard. It's a hard sport. And any success you have means the world. And so I think to have my name on any list that has, you know, Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr. at Talladega, that's a pretty big deal. I'm super happy and super proud to be there with them.
And does this kind of feel full circle, tying your former team owner who gave you a shot in this sport in Nationwide all those years ago, just to tie him?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the word surreal comes to mind. I would have never thought that would have been the case.
Thank you. Congrats again.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take our next one from Zach Sterniolo. Go ahead, Zach.
Brad, congrats on today's win. I'm curious, you know, you mentioned earlier how easy it is to build a run here at Talladega with this package, and Jeremy kind of talked about it as well. Do you feel like anything needs to fundamentally change with super speedway racing as we shift to the next gen car next year because of the pack racing, because of cars getting airborne, things along those lines? From a safety perspective, do you feel like anything needs to fundamentally change going forward for super speedways?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt we got to find a way to keep the cars on the ground. I don't care what the rules package is. We start there. You can't have cars leaving the ground. You know, we're pretty good drivers, but none of that stuff works when we're in there. The gas pedal, brake pedal, steering wheel, shifter, they're not rudders. You know, when that thing gets in the air, it lands where it wants to. It's what comes up must go down. You know, it's not a jet propelled airplane. And we have no way to control where it goes down. So we absolutely have to find a way to keep them from coming off the ground.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, we'll take our next one from Ashley McCubbin. Go ahead, Ashley.
Hey, Brad, thanks for your time today. It seems throughout the race, the Fords were able to push stronger, as well as had the better ability to get together in groups. Do you feel there's a manufacturer advantage, or is it just how strongly the teamwork is right now?
That's a good question. I felt like at one point in time, actually, the Chevys were doing the best at that. You know, they took the lead a couple times, working together really well. I mean, I think Ford works really hard at it. I think there's probably some drivers that are, you know, known for their prowess on the plate tracks, and all that comes together and it creates some pretty strong results. But I wouldn't rule out some of the other guys as well.
And now that you're basically put yourself into the playoffs with this win, what do you feel you and your team need to focus on as we head towards September?
Just, you know, we need to put more wins on the board. You know, we need the bonus points, need the stage points. We need all of those things. They're really important.
Thanks for your time.
No problem. Thanks, Ashley.
All right, Brad. Well, thank you for taking some time with us. I know this was a little bit over the time limit, so we will let you get to your other obligations. Congratulations on the victory, and we will see you at Kansas.
Take care, guys. Thank you.